Hello and welcome to Leaders Insight. My name is James Paulson. Today we're talking with Sue Ellen Watts, founder of What's Next. Thank you, Sue Ellen.
Thanks, James.
My first question, so we've just figured out we've known each other for about 9 years.
Yes.
Before we start, can you share with us, I guess, how you got to where you are now?
Sure. Well, I started the business What's Next 11 years ago, and I really didn't have any business experience, but I saw a niche in the market that I really wanted to capture, which was small to medium enterprises needing help with HR.
Yeah.
And so I started the business with no funds. I'd just moved to Queensland, so I had no network at all. And entrepreneurship and startups was a completely different landscape 11 years ago. It was nothing like what it is now. And but I had this idea, and I really believed in it, and I just went out and networked. And then over the time, we've just grown and developed what is now somewhat quite different from the beginning. It's just, I guess, broader and deeper than when I started, obviously. And now the business is focusing on fast growth, small to medium enterprise, really focused everything from leadership right through to tactical HR, including industrial relations, so everything to do with people. And I no longer head up the business. I give the strategy and look after the brand, but I've just recently relocated to New York to start a venture there.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And it is a big step, stepping back from the wheel and focusing on the strategy.
Yes.
And I think that's where most entrepreneurs get it wrong. They stay at the wheel too long.
Yeah.
And they lose their passion. So I'd like to talk about continual change has evolved the company, and it's been very important that your company's continued to evolve.
Yes.
So from that perspective, what do you see as some of the key challenges and opportunities looking forward for the HR industry, particularly the SME fast growing?
Yeah, so in relation to people in SMEs at the moment, I don't think there is as much change in the workplace as what we thought there was going to be. So a few years ago, we all sort of started to freak out because everything was moving so fast and we were getting so much information about the future of work and how that was going to impact our businesses. Now, I still believe that's happening, but it's at a much slower pace than what we expected. So I think until probably our Generation Z come in who have gone through a different education system, I don't think the workplaces are changing as much as what we thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I do think what we're looking at and what we're considering around how to lead people and what do people really want in their workplaces, that is certainly evolving. And I think that as leaders, there's much more of a need to really understand the role of leadership.
And an interesting thing to have a think about. So as you say that the take-up has been slow and it's probably generational. From your perspective, if someone wanted to leapfrog that as a dynamic private company, what are some of the insights you would share with them that they can be a true leader in their field through your insight?
In relation to their people?
Yep.
Yeah, look, I think that probably one of the key things that's been a big change that I think has more and more opportunities is the introduction of the gig economy or utilising freelancers, being able to engage someone for a particular skill set for a particular time. Now, previously, we couldn't do that. We would have to employ someone and then develop them, or they may have a skill set that we can utilise, but then we need to fill the rest of their time with other things, perhaps. But now we can decide that we want to innovate in our business tomorrow and go out to anyone in the whole world and find someone who has that skill set, engage them at a reasonable price for a period of time. And then when that's done, we can then stop that and then find someone else for the next stage. And I think this is really interesting because it means that we can innovate quicker, we can pilot things, we can pivot, and we can utilise high-level skills but at a cost that small businesses can afford. So I think that is probably the change that's occurred. And I know that there was concerns about, what does that mean for employees and will that impact permanent employees? And I don't think it has. I think what it's done is allowed businesses to perhaps do more things that they would have loved to have done but was restricted.
That is a really amazing point because, we hear about the gig economy, but you see it associated with cars and delivery and things like that. But in business, if you can access amazing expertise on a short-term basis to undertake particular tasks, that is a huge point of difference.
Yes, it really is, yeah.
It's almost like there could be a platform that sort of evolves purely around the SME market. I think that's actually probably one of the best takeouts I've picked up for a long time, because I know myself as a business owner, you rely so much upon your own instinct, but you don't always have that experience or expertise to know it's the best opportunity.
Absolutely. And as an SME, like if I think about 5 years ago, if I had the tools that the business landscape has now, even things like social media, for example. So when I started in business, the only way to get business was to go out and knock on doors and make cold calls and do networking. But now we have so many opportunities to build our brand and communicate with our target market that doesn't cost anything. And so we have this opportunity now, which ultimately leads to us being able to do more and employ more people and bring more skills into our business. But we have a flexibility to do it in a way that suits our business rather than a restricted way. So I think it's a really, I've said numerous times, this is the best time to be in business. So, there's so much available to us, and I love it. And it's given me the opportunities to go into spaces that I know nothing about or knew nothing about. So from a people perspective, it also enables staff to have their side hustles, so they can be working for someone permanently, but then they could have an interest in, say, photography or whatever it may be, or they want some extra money, so they drive Uber, but they can actually fulfil their other needs, whether it be creative or financial.
Yeah.
And I think that ultimately just creates more engagement.
That's a really interesting point, that a couple of our staff actually have sort of sideline roles as well, and that makes it easier for them to get the extra finance or to fulfill those needs. One thing I'd probably like to just ask is, how do you keep fresh in this market? Because there's only so much inspiration you can tap around you. Obviously living in New York is quite helpful.
Yes.
But what are some of the tips you have of keeping your thoughts and your ideas and your innovations fresh?
Yeah, so I put a lot of time and money into my personal development. So I attend a lot of conferences, but on a daily basis, I listen to podcasts daily and read a lot. But I also still do what I did 11 years ago, which was take people out and pick their brain. So I can listen to anyone any day of the week, but I also want that sort of face-to-face, tell me what's going on in your space, or you've done this and I haven't. So curiosity is really my thing, and I've always just wanted to know more about where are things going, what are people seeing in anything really. I find it really interesting, and I honestly think that if you're in business now and you are not keeping abreast of what's new, even if you're not ready to try things, then I question how long you could stay in business in this landscape.
Yeah.
I really think you need to be trying things, and I've always done that, and some things have been great and some things haven't worked at all, but I'll always do that. And I think that we're in a world now where if you don't get out there and start utilising the new things and understand where your industry is going, if you think that you don't have to change, I'd be very concerned.
If you don't, you'll die.
And even if you don't die, you are never going to meet the capability that or the potential that your business could have. And you may never realise that. You may never realise that you didn't meet the potential you thought. But I think that if you make a choice to be in business today, then you have a responsibility to make the most of everything that's available to you, because I would have loved that 11 years ago when I started out with absolutely nothing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the big things I picked out today was how the gig economy concept can work with SMEs.
Yes.
And I guess you guys touched on it with the What's Next platform many years ago. In Leaders, we're incorporating a new Ask the Expert platform where any of the alumni members can access and people immediately electronically. So that, to me, I think is something that everyone can take away.
Yes.
Look, in conclusion, is there a final message that you'd like to leave with the Leaders community on what they as their own leaders can do to take their leadership and skills to the next stage?
Yeah, I think that whilst the workforce is changing at a slower rate than we expected, it is changing. And I think that the one thing that we should be doing as leaders is keeping as close to our employees as possible. And I know the survey went out of fashion, but I think that's come back into fashion. And I think every opportunity you have to find out the climate of your business and understanding how are people feeling and what do they want and what do they need, because there's going to be these shifts occur, and if you can't see them coming, or if you're not aware of it, then you are going to have issues.
Yeah.
So I would be saying to all leaders, do you really know your people, and are you keeping close to them? Because if you don't, you'll find that they'll go, or they just generally won't be engaged. So.
And as we both know, you can't really grow a business if you haven't got a solid base.
Exactly, and it's our people that help us grow our businesses ultimately.
Absolutely. Suan, thank you very much, and thank you for the Leaders Insight.